For 70 years, the Daytona 500 was the most coveted race win in NASCAR. Drivers spent their entire careers trying to win this race. Dale Earnhardt said after finally winning in 1998 that it was the greatest feeling he had ever felt in his career. Mind you, this was coming from a 7-time champion who had won more races than almost anyone in the history of the sport. Nowadays, drivers don't share this same respect for the 500. Kyle Larson said in 2018 that he would rather win the Chili Bowl than the Daytona 500. And after the 2025 500, Denny Hamlin ripped into the race, saying it had lost its sense of the champion truly achieving something. Between car changes, drafting changes, driver changes, and officiating changes, the Daytona 500 has been dramatically altered over the past 20 years, and it's finally starting to receive criticism. So here's why drivers are starting to hate the Great American Race. From its inception, the 500 was won almost exclusively by Hall of Famers: Richard Petty, Dale Jarrett, Jeff Gordon, Jimmy Johnson. It was extremely hard to win, and these guys were among the only ones that had what it took. You first needed a rocket ship of a car that was capable of running up through the field and leading laps. After that, you needed a patient and experienced driver who would understand the right time to make passes without bogging themselves down and falling back. After all that, you needed to hope that your overworked engine didn't give out 170 laps in. You could tell how much of the race was reliant on pure talent and speed just by watching Dale Earnhardt Jr. in the 2000s. Anytime NASCAR went to a superspeedway, Jr. was a deadly weapon, capable of jumping up through the field and into the lead in only a few laps. One of the biggest reasons we saw this skill difference, besides teams building faster cars, was in the grip level on the track. Cars were so fast and tracks were so bumpy that drivers had to be extremely careful, lest they risk losing control and slamming the wall. Because of this, the experienced drivers could carefully play with the throttle to get slight advantages where others were lifting. This allowed drivers to get a run on the car ahead and make a proper clean pass. Eventually, this style of racing was slashed when the Generation 5 car was introduced. The car of tomorrow brought a lot of aerodynamic changes to NASCAR. Around this time, in part thanks to a repave at Daytona and a new rule making restarts too wide, we saw racing become a lot more bunched up. Where there were single-file lines of pure speed in 2001, there were now 3 wide rows of chaos in 2011. This was of course very entertaining, but a glaring problem came from this. With 2 wide and 3 wide racing now more common, big crashes began to happen at almost every race. Eventually it became common knowledge that it was a question of when, not if, the big one would happen. Despite this though, there were still some great strategies that drivers could use, like hanging around in the back to avoid wrecks until the end of the race, or just being good enough to lead most of the time. Additionally, huge wrecks weren't super common. You would maybe get 3 a year between the 4 super speedway races, so the cream could still rise to the top. And that's typically what we saw around this time. Matt Kenseth, Jimmy Johnson, Dale Jr., and Denny Hamlin all won the 500, all current or future Hall of Famers. So this all brings us to the modern era, where the race has started to receive criticism. The first thing you'll notice is that looking at the list of winners, that Hall of Fame pedigree has dwindled. Since 2018, the likes of Austin Dillon, Michael McDowell, Austin Cindric, and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. have won the 500. These drivers are good, no doubt, but they're certainly not on Hall of Fame trajectories. Of course, there's still been your potential Hall of Famers winning in there with Denny Hamlin and William Byron going back to back, but the hit rate seems to have dropped from 90% to 50%. This shift to more random winners indicates that the race has become more luck-based. I mean, Michael McDowell had no wins in his 10-year career when he won his 500. Austin Cindric was starting his 8th ever Cup race, and Austin Dillon had only won a fuel mileage race prior to his win. There are a number of reasons that the race is now more reliant on luck. The first reason is car changes, especially starting with the next-gen car. With this car, running 2 wide, 3 wide, or even 4 wide is much easier thanks to the lower speeds and fuel-saving strategies that are employed by the teams. Instead of running as hard as possible all race, drivers now run half throttle for the majority of the race. This saves them fuel, which saves them a few fractions of a second fueling up their cars on pit road, which allows them to jump past their competitors during pit stops. So why is this fuel-saving strategy so popular all of a sudden? First, since cars are much more aerodynamic and grippy, tires often do not need to be changed at Daytona during pit stops. This is important because tire changing takes longer than fueling, so if tires had to be changed, the amount of fuel needed would be irrelevant. Secondly, since cars have less aerodynamic drag, it's easier for leaders to hold back runs from drivers behind, so there's no point in trying to push full throttle if you can't make a pass. The side effect of this fuel saving is that the entire field reaches a state of gridlock where no one, no matter how good their car is, can drive up through the field, making track position critical, a phrase that was almost never used at Daytona previously. Another problem with the car is that it's a spec car, so those big advantages, like the rocket ships that Dale Jr. had in the 2000s, are no longer possible to obtain. Sure, some cars are faster than others, but only marginally, and ultimately any team can win at Daytona now. You might view this as a positive since it puts everyone on equal ground, but you also might view this as a negative since it takes away the challenge for the teams to build a fast car. One more problem with this car is just the way it races at Daytona, even without fuel saving. The car struggles to run side by side and often stalls out. This is why Kyle Busch tweeted this after the 2024 Talladega Spring Race. The cars are incapable of generating runs like the ones that we saw back in 2019 and 2020 when Denny Hamlin won both Daytona 500s. Back then, we would see this great speed differential between individual drivers that allowed for proper skill to be displayed in passing and blocking. This current car just has very stagnant runs too often, and it means that it's impossible to move forward if you're outside the top 5. I mean, seriously, the type of come-from-nowhere wins like Kevin Harvick had in 2007 just can't happen anymore with this car because you can't generate momentum unless an entire line is perfectly pushing you. With the field stagnant, nobody can put their skill on display, and the control is taken away from the driver. One of the biggest problems facing modern NASCAR is the current state of the drivers. With every new generation, it seems drivers lose their sense of racing respect and etiquette more and more. A simple look at the Martinsville Xfinity finish this year tells the whole story.
Is there? Will there be contact? There is! There goes Gray! Here comes Allgaier! Austin Hill! Out of nowhere, it's gonna win! Oh my goodness! Martinsville!
If drivers can't trust each other to care about proper racing, then superspeedways are certainly doomed. While a desperate final corner dive bomb is a rare scenario, leading at Daytona isn't. And when you're leading, the intrusive thoughts can become intense. With multiple lines pulling up alongside you, all it takes is one block attempt and everyone in the field crashes. Now multiply that thought process by 36 and you have modern NASCAR drivers, especially the likes of Joey Logano, Brad Keselowski, and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. It has now become standard to throw late blocks to try to keep position. It happens almost every single time we come to Daytona. Drivers have even said, next time someone throws a late block, I'm not lifting. This type of aggressive racing has become normalized. The thing about this, and why drivers keep doing these things, is because it works. Ricky Stenhouse has won at Daytona twice, including a 500. Austin Dillon won a 500 by taking out Eric Almirola. Joey Logano is a Daytona 500 champion and frequent winner at superspeedways, and Brad Keselowski was incredible at Daytona and Talladega when he was with Penske. This kind of brutish racing is rewarded because of the closeness of the cars in modern NASCAR, and also because of the current NASCAR playoff system, which makes second place virtually useless for almost all drivers to finish in. Once drivers get a win, they're locked in, so they fight for the win like their lives depend on it and never settle for second. This is bad because it devalues the effort for a second place. Think about how much more a podium in F1 means than a second in NASCAR. You might as well have finished 9th. And also second gets no playoff points, so even drivers that already have a win have no reason to settle for second. This creates desperation within the field, and desperation tends to lead to destruction in racing. Drivers hate the fact that their competitors are creating unnecessary wrecks. They hate that they can be minding their own business in 20th and get slammed by a crash that was completely unrelated that started up in 5th place. It's one thing if you cause the wreck, it's another if you're an innocent victim. For many drivers who have bad history at superspeedways, like Kyle Larson, Kyle Busch in the 500, and Martin Truex Jr., it seems almost inevitable that they will get taken out at some point in the race. It's just a matter of when, not if. One more problem facing the Daytona 500 that has popped up as of recent is last lap cautions. With the increased volume of crashes thanks to driver and car changes, the last lap has now become a death trap for all drivers in the field. Where drivers used to be able to employ their skill to perfectly time a run up to the finish line and make a pass for the win in the last second, we now have drivers just trying to get the lead as quick as possible on the last lap so that they can be leading in case the caution comes out. The entire art of timing a pass for the lead now seems lost. And partly to blame for this is NASCAR because of their inconsistency on when they throw the caution flag. Sometimes a huge wreck happens and they let them run, sometimes a small spin happens and they instantly throw the caution. Consistency would go a long way here. And that all brings us to the current state of the Daytona 500, where in 2021 it was decided by a last lap crash, then it was won by a rookie the year after, then in 2023 it was decided by a last lap crash again, this time with some of the least enthusiastic commentating you will ever hear.
Go to the middle. Oh, he got turned.
And in 2024 and 2025 it was again decided by last lap crashes, both being rather egregious. In 2024 they crashed the moment they took the white flag, and in 2025 half the top 10 got wiped out and William Byron by complete luck won the race. So where does NASCAR go from here? I think the first thing they need to do is take off the underbody, at least at the super speedways, because it's creating flips at an alarming rate. Once the safety is good, then we can start to work on designing the cars to actually get runs on each other. The easiest way to do this would be to add more drag to the cars so that the following cars get a bigger advantage from the draft. This would be a great step forward, but only a small piece of the process in rebuilding the grandeur of the Daytona 500. But at the end of the day, I'm just a random guy on the internet, and regardless of what I have to say, the Daytona 500 will always be one of the biggest races in all of motorsport.
Daytona 500, side by side, bouncing off each other.
Thanks for watching, everyone.